All right, all right, all right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, whatever time it is when you're finding this. Welcome or welcome back to Kai Chi Alchemy. You can call me Katchi. This is a space of love, y'all. Um, I was gonna be live streaming from bed today, and I decided against it. But I definitely am live streaming like I just got out of bed, because yeah, bear with me with my voice and everything. We are going to be doing a reading of the continuum concept, moving forward through that first section, and we're just going to get right into it right now. Happy Venus moving over into Leo, everybody. It is an interesting day for me today, where I woke up real like I have this experience sometimes where I'll eat something that I'm not used to eating. I've been utilizing like nutrient dense, ketosis inducing foods for a long time, and whenever I break out of that, I feel the effects and I know what to expect. And so I woke up and I was like, oh, I feel so depressed, and all of these negative thoughts that I'm struggling to process through and deal with. And then I was like, oh yeah, yesterday I ate food in the middle of the night, which I rarely ever do. And I had this little miniature Lara bar that had come from my work that was like peanut butter, or it was like peanuts and dates and organic chocolate chips or something, which a lot of people wouldn't say is unhealthy, and it's not. But for me, I am extremely um, sensitive to like blood sugar spikes and stuff, and that affects my mental health and the way that my brain works, and how well it's able to heal from all of its past damage and stuff. And so I woke up and I knew this is the moment when spiritual bypassing is useful. Like materialism is useful sometimes when you're like dealing with kids and feeding them and protecting them and stuff. That's important to prioritize, even, putting some of the spiritual insight stuff to the side. But to kind of totally ignore what you're feeling in your body, and just knowing that um, this too shall pass, and like what you're feeling right now isn't reflective of reality, and you know exactly why you're going through it. So I think there's something here for some people about um, kind of sifting through and identifying what the choices and the habits and the things that you do that support you actually are to feel your best. And just so that you have that awareness of when you make a decision in your life and it has an effect and you don't feel the best, that you're able to kind of power through that with the power of your mind, and remembering back to the times when you've made those choices, you've suffered those consequences, and not only did you learn better and learn not to do it, but when you do operate against your best interest, consciously or unconsciously, you can also benefit from that past experience, just in knowing that the lack of peace and the lack of calm and equanimity and perspective and like all the things that you want, they're on the other side of something. Time, making more decisions to help you get back where you want to go. And that can be really important when you're physically not feeling the best. Because if you aren't able to make decisions to bring you into a future that you want, even when the present moment is a big struggle and is feeling like it's working against you, and you have to work so hard to create this future that, like, is that even possible? It is possible. There's things in your past that you've enjoyed, right? More or less, to different degrees. Focus on those and work on building them up and recreating them, but also being compassionate with yourself when you make decisions that maybe you knew on some level was gonna lead you into a struggle in the near future. You know what I mean? Hello, good morning. I still push forward despite losing major parts of myself, like my left leg and teeth don't ever give up. Thank you, Grim. Um, it's not a labubu. Actually, I'm not 100% sure where the stuffed animal came from, but it is a little zombie. It I forget. Oh, yes, I named him Rar, and he is a symbol of the subconscious. But specifically, we are moving into Cancer season, and we are doing a reading on the continuum concept today. And so I thought that it was quite funny and interesting that I woke up and I had my knockoff Labubu. I mean, it really isn't. It's just a stuffed animal. Um, and we have Cancer season coming up in the near future. And there is this connection between, kind of like the moon card, between the subconscious and Cancer and like your family and your history and how that impacts you and how that affects your wiring and stuff. So you may, if you have like childhood trauma to an extreme extent, you may struggle to like think back on happy memories and regenerate those feelings and stuff. But again, just meet yourself where you are, whether you had like a good teacher at school or you had like some other experience that you can tap into that you remember that made you feel hopeful and joyful and grateful, that is a really good thing to do. Also, when I first started out, I don't think it would be useful to me now. Different stages, different things for different people. But when I first really started rewiring my brain, I would wake up every day and I would take a journal and just be like, I'm grateful for this and that and this and that. And like, even if it was just the food in my fridge and like the shampoo in my shower, and you know, like the sun rising and the breath in my lungs. And it can be a little corny, but just do your best, whatever those things mean to you. And if you don't have a lot of positive memories and feelings associated with your family, your parents, your background, then this Cancer season is going to be really important for you because it's really important work to do that you cannot avoid, because your childhood follows you everywhere. And on that theme, after 8 minutes, 8:18 on the clock of me talking, after I said we're going to get right into it, we're actually going to get right into it. Yeah. Okay. So we stopped kind of in the middle at a random spot in this chapter. If you'd like to hear the rest of it, it's in the playlist under the continuum concept. This is a book written by Jean Liedloff. She's like an anthropologist, sociologist. It can be a little bit wordy. Be prepared. When at last the expedition began, after many preparations and delays, we traveled up the Karkupi River, a small explored tributary of the Caroni. In a month, we made considerable headway upriver in spite of the obstacles, mainly trees fallen across the water, through which we had to cut a passage for the canoe with axes and machetes, or waterfalls or rapids over which we portaged about a ton of material with the help of 2 Indians. The little river had halved in volume by the time we made a base camp to explore some tributary streamlets. It was our first day of rest since we had entered the Karkupi. After breakfast, the Italian leader and both Indians went off to look at the geological situation, while the second lolled gratefully in his hammock. I took one of the 2 paperback books I had bought from a small selection of English titles at the Ciudad Bolivar airport and found a seat among the roots of a large tree that overhung the river. I read partway through the first chapter, not daydreaming, but following the story with normal attentiveness, when suddenly I was struck with terrific force by a realization. This is it! The glade! All the excitement of the little girl's insight came back. I had lost it, and now in a grown-up glade, the biggest jungle on earth, it had returned. The mysteries of jungle life, the ways of its animals and plants, its dramatic storms and sunsets, its snakes, its orchids, its fascinating virginity, the hardness of making one's way in it, and the generosity of its beauty, all made it appear even more actively and profoundly right. It was rightness on a grand scale. As we flew over, it had looked like a great green ocean, stretching to the horizon on every side, interlaced with waterways, raised high upon assertive mountains, offered to the sky on the open hands of plateaus. It vibrated in its every cell with life, with rightness, ever changing, ever intact, and always perfect. In my joy that day, I thought I had come to the end of my search, that my goal had been achieved, the clear view of things at their undiluted best. It was the rightness I had tried to discern through the bafflements of my childhood, and in the talks, discussions, arguments, often pursued until dawn in the hope of a glimpse of it in my adolescent years. It was the glade, lost, found, and now recognized, this time forever. Around me, overhead, underfoot, everything was right. Being born, living, dying, and being replaced without a break in the order of it all. I ran my hands lovingly over the great roots that held me like an armchair and began to entertain the idea of staying in the jungle for the rest of my life. At the end of the Karkupi exploration, we did find a few diamonds. When we went back to the little outpost of Los Caribes for supplies, I saw in a mirror that I had gained weight and for the first time in my life might be described as slender rather than skinny. I felt stronger, more able, less afraid than ever before. I was thriving in my beloved jungle. There were still 6 months to think about how I'd managed to stay on after the expedition. There was no need to face the practical problems yet. When the months had passed, however, I was ready to leave. My flourishing health had been brought down by malaria, and my morale was eroded by hunger for meat and green vegetables. I would have traded one of our hard-won diamonds for a glass of orange juice, and I was thinner than ever. But after 7.5 months, I had a far more detailed view of the jungle's rightness. I had seen the Tarapan Indians, not just the two we had hired, but whole clans, families at their home in their huts, traveling in groups, hunting, living the life of a species in its habitat without outside support of any consequence except for the machete and the steel axe in place of their original stone one. They were the happiest people I had seen anywhere, but I hardly noticed it then. They were so different from us. Smaller, less muscular, yet able to carry heavier loads, much greater distances than the best of us. I did not so much as wonder why. They thought in other patterns. To get to Patakapa, one would ask, shall we go upriver by canoe or march overland? And the Indian would answer, yes. I seldom had a clear sense that they were of the same species as ourselves, though, of course, if I asked, should have said so without hesitation. The children were uniformly well behaved, never fought, were never punished, always obeyed happily and instantly. The deprecation, boys will be boys, did not apply to them, but I never asked myself why. There was no doubt in my mind that the jungle was right, nor that whatever I was looking for was best looked for there. But the rightness and viability of the jungle's ecosystem, plants, animals, Indians, and all, did not, as I first believed, automatically constitute an answer, a personal solution, for me. Again, this was not then clear. I was slightly ashamed of my increasing desire for spinach, orange juice, rest. I had a wildly romantic love and awe of the great, uncaring forest, and while preparing to leave, was already thinking of ways and means to come back. The truth of the matter was that I had found no rightness for myself at all. I had only seen it from outside and managed to recognize it, and very superficially at that. I somehow did not see the obvious, that the Indians, as humans like myself and also as participants in the jungle's rightness, were the common denominator, the link between the harmony around me and my want of it. Some small illuminations did get through to my civilization blinded mind. For example, some concerning the concept of work. We had traded our slightly too small aluminum canoe for a much too big dugout. In the vessel, carved from a single tree, 17 Indians at one time traveled with us, with all their baggage added to ours and everyone aboard. The vast canoe still looked rather empty. Portaging it, this time, with only 4 or 5 to help, over half a mile of boulders beside a large waterfall, was depressing to contemplate. It meant placing logs across the path of the canoe and hauling it inch by inch in the merciless sun, slipping inevitably into the crevices between the boulders whenever the canoe pivoted out of control, and scraping one's shins, ankles, and whatever else one landed on against the granite. We had done the portage before with the small canoe, and the 2 Italians and I, knowing what lay ahead, spent several days dreading the hard work and pain. On the day we arrived at Arapuchi Falls, we were primed to suffer and started off, grim-faced and hating every moment to drag the thing over the rocks. When it swung sideways, so heavy was the rogue pierogi, it several times pinned one of us to the burning rock until the others could move it off. A quarter of the way across, all ankles were bleeding, partly by way of begging off for a minute. I jumped up on a high rock to photograph the scene. From my vantage point and momentary disinvolvement, I noticed a most interesting fact. Here before me were several men engaged in a single task. 2, the Italians, were tense, frowning, losing their tempers at everything, and cursing nonstop in the distinctive manner of the Tuscan. The rest, Indians, were having a fine time. They were laughing at the unwieldiness of the canoe, making a game of the battle, relaxed between pushes, laughing at their own scrapes, and especially amused when the canoe, as it wobbled forward, pinned one, then another underneath it. The fellow held bare-backed against the scorching granite when he could breathe again, and invariably laughed the loudest, enjoying his relief. All were doing the same work. All were experiencing strain and pain. There was no difference in our situations, except that we had been conditioned by our culture to believe that such a combination of circumstances constituted an unquestionable low on the scale of well-being, and were quite unaware that we had any option in the matter. The Indians, on the other hand, equally unconscious of making a choice, were in a particularly merry state of mind, reveling in the camaraderie, and of course they had had no long build-up of dread to mar the preceding days. Each forward move was for them a little victory. As I finished photographing and rejoined the team, I opted out of the civilized choice and enjoyed, quite genuinely, the rest of the portage. Even the barks and bruises I sustained were reduced with remarkable ease to nothing more significant than what they indeed were: small hurts which would soon heal, and which required neither an unpleasant emotional reaction such as anger, self-pity, or resentment, nor anxiety at how many more there might be before the end of the haul. On the contrary, I found myself appreciative of my excellently designed body, which would patch itself up with no instructions or decisions from me. But soon my sense of emancipation again gave way to the tyranny of habit, to the great weight of cultural conditioning that only a sustained conscious effort can countermand. I did not make the necessary effort, and therefore came away from the expedition without much profit from the revelation. There's a couple things that I wanted to comment on there. As far as children are a really good example of like falling down, hurting yourself, crying really hard, expressing your emotions if you need to, and then just like getting up and acting like it never happened. And some people argue with that because their experience of children has been a lot of anger, a lot of self-pity, a lot of resentment, a lot of yeah, a lot of these unnecessary reactions and emotions. But I would argue, in my experience as somebody who's worked in childcare and education and with families in all kinds of situations, from really committed attachment parents and like the whole spectrum, that those reactions in those children are learned. And sometimes it's like pre-verbal. Sometimes it's because they witness it in their parents. They feel it in their parents. This anger, this self-pity, this resentment, it's a vibration and a frequency that they pick up on. It's light language being used to program from, before you're born sometimes. And you get entrained into this rhythm, into this frequency, into this expectation, into this pattern, into this structure, into this cultural conditioning from the moment you're conceived. And so, yeah, there's a whole bunch of different kinds of children, but naturally, what I see when you take out a lot of the distortion and when parents truly choose to work on themselves before they choose to have children, this getting bogged down and stuck in loops, in unuseful, unhelpful emotional reactions that are partially suppressed, not fully expressed, and just last forever. That's not who you are. That's not who you were when you were conceived. That's not who you were maybe when you were born. That's not who you are at your core. That is cultural conditioning. And so it's good to acknowledge that it is the experiences that you went through that created those reactions, so that when you have them, you can have compassion for it and understand where it came from, but also don't identify with it. You don't need to identify with it because it's not who you are. And if you do choose to identify with it, it's feeding this weird part of your ego that isn't actually going to be useful or helpful to you in the end. You need to humble yourself enough to the degree that you can acknowledge that your reactions and your like impulsive reactions, your conditioned reactions are not you. Some people are very committed to and connected to the story that is you, and to invalidate that is to invalidate your identity and your existence and your lovability and stuff. But it's not. And so this is again getting into kind of the theme of spiritual bypassing in a useful way. When you're in the thick of those experiences, you can fully experience it in your body, but there's a part of your mind that helps to carry you through, that helps to give you gratitude and hope, that helps you know this too shall pass. And that is God, in my opinion. I think that Jean's Glade, the video, would be really useful for a lot of y'all, because that's also on this theme of spiritual bypassing, is having this memory, or if you're able to generate, with your imagination, this idea of the glade, of this place where everything is decaying and growing and changing and shifting, and it's always different, but it's always the same, and it's always hard, but it's always perfect. That that kind of environment can be an extremely useful tool for you when you are in the darkness, when you are in the depths of it, when you are in environments that you struggled to maintain your sanity within. So you can appreciate it as a moment where you're going into the tomb, you're going into the cave, you're going into the dark, and you don't know exactly how or what this will look like to get out of this present moment and into a space that is closer to that glade. But you know that it is. You know it's inevitable sooner or later. And that helps a lot of people power through a lot of situations that not only would take some people out, but would turn people into people that they're not, and develop new patterns that are harmful towards themselves and others. Hello, Sarah. Good morning. Okay, so we will continue with how my ideas were so radically changed from the continuum concept. A lot more in the near future, and then we're gonna keep going through it throughout this Cancer season, which I feel like is gonna be really powerful and really fun. So thank you for hanging through this reading with me, with all the vocabulary and stuff, and my cracking voice and my rolled out of bed brain. But it's this cozy vibe, this Cancer vibe. It's also kind of related to the Virgo energy I've been connecting to recently, of keep showing up, routine, earth sign, keep at it, but also working through perfectionism. So just showing up when you know it's not going to be perfect. I think I'm ready to do the Virgo video, so I'm going to do it soon. But that was why that block was there for me, is because I have Mars in Virgo. So structure and routine, as much as it's not supernatural to me because of the rest of the stuff in my chart, it actually keeps me going, keeps me motivated, keeps me alive, keeps me energized, keeps me focused. But to mix that with the Virgo and Chiron lessons that I have had to learn around perfectionism, and just not showing up at all if it can't be perfect and all of that, there is a balance to be had there. So there might be something in there for some of y'all, or you just might need to know that I'm going to be putting out that Virgo video soon, so you don't have to be too impatient. It's a coming. What sign are you? Oh, retracted. Come on, man. Oh well. I will see you next time. I love you guys so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Love, light, peace, and personal responsibility.